All right, today we're diving into a really powerful idea from the philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer, and it's all about how to actually think for yourself. I mean, in a world that's just drowning in information, his guide is basically a masterclass in how we can reclaim our own intellectual independence. So let's just kick things off with a question that's going to turn a common belief completely on its head. Think about it. We're always told to read more, right? Consume more, learn more. But Schopenhauer, he comes along and forces us to ask something pretty radical. What if all this constant consumption is actually making our minds weaker, not stronger? What if it's making us stupider? And that question brings us to what Schopenhauer called the intellectual crossroads. It's like we're all standing at a fork in the road. Down one path, you've got the endless, easy collection of information. But down the other path, well, that's the harder journey, but it leads to something way more valuable: genuine insight. And just look at how starkly Schopenhauer draws this line. He calls mere information a dead weight. Seriously, he sees it as just scraps and leftovers from other people's thinking that we just carry around. But insight? Oh, that's something completely different. It's a living force. It's knowledge you've grown yourself, not just gathered. It actually becomes a part of you, giving you this sovereign, independent way of seeing the world. Okay, to make this whole thing crystal clear, Schopenhauer gives us this absolutely brilliant metaphor. He says people who just rely on borrowed knowledge, well, they're basically wearing an intellectual wig. It's this fancy mask of intelligence, but it's just covering up a mind that hasn't done its own thinking. So this intellectual wig, it's a symbol for a mind that's just stuffed with a bunch of alien thoughts, ideas that aren't its own. And yeah, it might look impressive from a distance, like one of those big fancy 18th century wigs. But when you get up close, you realize it's totally lifeless. It's just an ornament. It's not real. It's not part of the person wearing it. And this is why Schopenhauer absolutely loved this quote from Lawrence Stern. It just nails his whole philosophy perfectly. An ounce of a man's own wit is worth a ton of other people's. I mean, think about that. One tiny little spark of your own original thinking is worth more than a whole mountain of facts you've just memorized from someone else. And relying on this wig has some seriously fatal flaws. First off, these borrowed ideas have no roots. They're not connected to your own life, your own perceptions. Second, they're just a poor fit, right? Someone else's thoughts were tailored for their mind, not yours. It's like wearing clothes that don't fit. And finally, and this is the big one, when you run out of borrowed ideas, you're totally stuck. Your own factory of thought was never even switched on. So that brings us to his second big metaphor. If the outside is a wig, what does the inside of that mind look like? Well, Schopenhauer argues it's basically a museum of dead ideas. Yeah, he compares a mind that's just full of undigested facts to a museum of dried plants, a herbarium. It might be perfectly organized, everything labeled and cataloged, but it's a collection of things that used to be alive. The vitality, the life force, it's completely gone. It's an impressive collection, for sure, but it's a dead one. You see, this museum mind just lets information pass right through it, totally undigested. But the mind of a true thinker, that's like living nature. It doesn't just store knowledge, it assimilates it. It takes in information and turns it into something new, something that nourishes the entire system. It's a living, breathing process of digestion, not just a dead storage unit. So the big question is, how do we become these digesters instead of just collectors? Well, Schopenhauer actually gives us a pretty clear roadmap. Step 1, prioritize seeing the world for yourself before you read what other people have to say about it. Step 2, think deeply and repeatedly about what you've seen and learned. Don't just glance at it. And 3, combine those new truths with what you already know. And maybe the most important part, step 4, make sure every single abstract idea is rooted in something real that you've actually perceived. That's how knowledge stops being a thing and becomes a part of who you are. Okay, so this brings us to the really practical stuff. We've diagnosed the problem, right? This whole issue of secondhand thinking. So now, how do we actually start to cultivate this art of intellectual sovereignty and really truly think for ourselves? And right away, Schopenhauer hits us with another bombshell. He says, reading is thinking with someone else's head instead of one's own. Whoa. It's like putting your mind on a leash, letting someone else lead it around. Now, he's not saying never read, of course, but we have to be super clear about what its proper place is. So that leads to the obvious critical question, right? If just reading all the time can be a trap that stops us from thinking, when should you read? what's the right way to do it? And for Schopenhauer, it's all about your timing and your intention. He lays out some rules, and they're simple but incredibly powerful. Rule 1, treat reading as a makeshift. It's a temporary fix for when your own well of ideas happens to run dry. And this next one is huge. Never, ever pick up a book just to scare away your own thoughts, to escape the hard work of thinking. Schopenhauer literally calls that a sin against the Holy Ghost, a crime against your own brilliant mind. And this leads to a really beautiful idea. He says you have to wait for the happy hour of thought. See, true insight can't be forced. You can't put it on your calendar. It just arrives in this perfect moment when your inner mood and some little spark from the outside world align. Your job isn't to force it, it's to be patient and create the conditions for these moments to happen. So what's the ultimate goal in all of this? I mean, where are we heading? For Schopenhauer, this is so much bigger than just being smarter. It's about reclaiming your mental throne. It's about going from being a lowly subject in the kingdom of ideas to becoming its sovereign ruler. And this is where he presents us with the ultimate choice. Are you going to be the man of learning, basically a subject who just relies on what the authorities say and silently obeys the intellectual laws handed down by others? Or are you going to be the thinker, the monarch, who judges everything firsthand, whose position is supreme, and who authorizes their own truths based on what they see with their own eyes? So here it is. Here's your path to that throne. You start by speaking from direct knowledge, from what you've actually seen for yourself. You use simple, common words to express big, uncommon ideas, because clarity is the mark of a true genius. You never let the noise of other people's opinions drown out your own sovereign voice. And you acknowledge no authority but your own confirmed perception. And why would you go through all this effort? What's the payoff? Because the reward, he says, is the greatest happiness a person can possibly experience. It's that joy a fine and fruitful mind finds in itself. It's a kind of happiness that's totally sovereign, completely independent, and 100% your own. So we're going to end with this question for you. Schopenhauer has laid out the two paths very clearly. Will you remain a copy, just repeating the thoughts of others? Or will you learn to read directly from the original source, the book of the world itself? The choice, as always, is yours.